Welcome to the CE Pro podcast. I'm Executive Editor Arlen Schweiger. Focus, discipline, productivity, physical and mental health. These are just some of the attributes we think about that are often associated with the practice of martial arts. In this week's episode, our Bob Archer, a martial art practitioner himself, chats with One Firefly's John Baskerville and Torus Power's Kevin Main about their involvement in martial arts and what it's meant for their well-being and their careers.
Hi, I'm Bob Archer. I'm with CE Pro Magazine, and today we've got an Industry's Got Talent special edition of CE Pro's podcast. Today we're going to talk about martial arts, and I have a pair of martial artists with me that have been practicing and enjoy the lifestyle elements of martial arts. I have John Baskerville from One Firefly and Kevin Main from Torus Power with me today. How you guys doing?
Excellent. You're real good.
Good to be here today, Bob.
Thank you. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about martial arts, not only the obvious elements of it, you know, the self-defense aspects and whatnot, but we're going to talk about martial arts as a lifestyle, which I think is important for people to understand if they've ever thought about trying to exercise and take care of themselves, the mental and physical aspects that martial arts can bring to someone's life. So I want to get right involved into this. I'll start with you, John. How did you get involved in martial arts, and why have you continued to practice martial arts after all these years?
Sure. You know, I got into it in high school. So ninth grade, young man. I was looking for a sport where there'd be a one-on-one opportunity, right? I'd done a lot of team sports, and they're great. They're good team building activities. You do learn a lot in those sports. But I was looking for something where I could have a one-on-one. And so wrestling is where it started. A cousin of mine actually said he was going to join the wrestling team. And I said, do you want to, he asked me, do you want to join in with me? And I said, yes. And of course, like many people, not knowing that high school even had a wrestling team, like to think that there was actually a combat sport that was being offered up in high school that was illuminating. I had no idea. So, but that immediately attracted me. I signed up and fell in love with it ever since. And so I am now 45 years old. I'm still participating in the sport, not competing, but it is a lifestyle sport for me at this point, and I do enjoy it. So I do get a lot from it, but that's how I found it. I found it in high school and fell in love with it ever since then.
Hey, and you, Kevin?
Well, I came about it in a little bit of a different path than John. You know, karate to me is something that's relatively new. And I may have shared this with you at one time, Bob, but I have a teenage son, and we started him on the karate. Well, we started him in jiu-jitsu when he was about 7 or 8 years old, and then we continued into karate. And, you know, I'm taking him every week or a couple of times a week to these karate workouts to the dojo. And I started thinking about the fact that I'm going to have an 18-year-old black belt kid on my hands that, you know, maybe it's going to be a bit difficult for me to control at times. So I thought I better do something about this, and decided that I would get involved and started doing the karate with him. So we've taken an approach as a family now where we're doing it as a family, and we work out at a local club here. And, you know, we enjoy, I mean, not just the lifestyle, it's a learning about yourself and an awareness about yourself and an awareness about other people. And it really goes well beyond the sport. I mean, for me, you know, exercise was one of my goals. Having something to focus on that took my mind away from the business was another one of my goals. And the real treat for me has been kind of the family part of it and being able to do this with my son. It's brought us closer together, and it's brought us a better understanding of each other.
Kevin, could you state the style of karate? I think for people unaware, karate and kung fu have many different forms or styles. What style do you practice?
So we practice traditional Syringe karate, which is the traditional karate from Okinawa. Our club here, our local club, has been in operation for 40 years. And it's a small community here, so it's a very small club. But our head instructor, her name is Lisa Robinson. She's a 6th degree black belt in Syringe karate, and she's a 1st degree black belt in Ekijitsu. So the club gets into some other forms of martial arts as well, including, the Taekwondo and Jiu-Jitsu and some of the other forms, but primarily it's focused on the Syringe karate.
Okay, I'll throw my little bit in here too. I started wrestling in high school. I stopped practicing martial arts from after high school until my early 40s. My kids and wife had signed up at the local studio, Five Dragons in Haverhill, which is a Kyokushin karate school under Sensei Mark Hicks. And after a couple of months, I was like, I should be doing that. It's great exercise for them. And, I've been doing it ever since. And I was lucky enough to earn my black belt a couple years ago. And more recently, I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at Binder Jiu-Jitsu here in my hometown under Professor Julio Binder, who's a recognized figure in that community. So I've been really lucky to have some awesome influences in terms of martial arts as an adult. But okay, moving on to something that we had alluded to earlier, the lifestyle benefits. This time we'll start with you, Kevin. Do you see any benefits to practicing martial art in your electronics industry career?
Yeah, there's absolute benefits, Bob. I mean, I'm sure you know this really well with your commitment to the martial arts, but focus, inner strength producing outer strength, learning how to deal with stress, and learning how to focus and channel your stress are all things that transfer from practicing karate for me to what I deal with on a day-to-day business situations. And a lot of it is about finding a deeper understanding for yourself, which allows you to be more patient in situations and more understanding of other people. We certainly practice karate at the dojo, but we also spend time learning about the understanding of what the lessons are trying to teach. It's really woven into the fabric of the club, and that's been one of the real big benefits for me, is to be able to take that and apply it to the business world and make more stressful situations manageable.
That's really interesting, Kevin. I feel the same way. Particularly, Kyokushin is known as a hard style, and it's known for its striking, but it also has kata. And one of my favorite katas is a deep breathing kata called Sanshin, and it dates back to Chinese monks in about 2,000 years ago. It's a deep breathing. It's called a Boogie Breathing. And if I feel stressed or overwhelmed, if I can slide off and do that kata, it will help calm me down. And plus there's the exercise benefit of practicing martial arts, and I'll say the competitive spirit, even though I'm not capable, the UFC isn't looking for me, but simply wanting to be the best of myself, whether it's sparring, doing Kyokushin, or rolling, with the jiu-jitsu. I want to do as well as possible, even if I'm going to lose. I still want to compete. So I think there are a number of benefits to doing martial arts.
Yeah, our club focuses a lot on the katas, And, I've really enjoyed that part of it, just because of the focus and the concentration that you need to have. I'm always amazed at the end of our karate sessions. I mean, we typically go for 2 hours, sometimes 2.5 hours. And I'm always amazed at the end of it that you look back and think, wow, I didn't think of anything else during the past 2 or 2.5 hours other than karate, and focusing on the katas and remembering and trying to make the proper moves, and the right breathing, and all of the proper techniques. And that's always kind of interested me and amazed me, that you can get away from the world for a short period of time and just be so immersed into something. It's really, for me, that's been one of the big benefits of doing this, is just getting the time away from everything else in the world.
Okay, and Sean, from your perspective, what benefits do you see practicing martial arts to your career at One Firefly?
Yeah, sure. And my apologies for cutting in and out here. I'm at the mercy of the internet for all intents and purposes. But yeah, for me, it's. I think if you ask a lot of people that have competed in these martial arts sports, you're going to hear things about, learning about failure, learning about tenacity and overcoming and go-getter attitudes, and all of those things that kind of come with the sport. So, if I think of something that I can offer the audience that may be a bit, because I certainly agree with all of that, might be a bit unique from that, is that for me, what I've learned the most and bring it into my career is the humility of it all. And, if you're going to decide to participate in the sport, even if you're just sparring, right? Even if you just decide to walk into a room, maybe you don't have ambitions to compete, you're still going to have to submit yourself, put your pride and ego to the side, and allow someone who is better than you to teach you, to show you where your deficiencies are. And certainly if you then decide to go and then compete, you're really going to be, you are going to have to put your pride to the side, because you're not going to walk out there on day one conquering the world. You're going to lose a lot. You're going to lose a lot before you actually start winning. And at one point, there will be a shift, and you lose less. And then one day you'll win more. And so there's a humility in all of that. On any given day, someone is better than you. And bringing that into your workspace, what that has translated for me is that on any given day, if I don't show up and be my best, there will be failure. If I don't commit myself fully to a process or a project, the output to the organization is going to be less. If I look around to my left and right and I look at my peers, that humility will have me immediately recognize that someone knows something more than I do in a particular area, or is doing something better in a particular area than I do. And that humility all through all of that just sets you up to persevere. And it's just a profound recognition that there's always room to grow. There's always room to be better. There's always more to learn. And that failure is a process. And you learn. You go back, you look at the tape, figure out what could I have done better, and then you go out there and do better. And that translates well into any career or any aspect of your life. So that's what I've found. Humility is a big piece of these martial arts sports, no doubt about it. And you guys know that very well.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because that is absolutely right on. Humility and respect for your peers. In the case of martial arts, if you're sparring someone, or if you're rolling, if it's jiu-jitsu or whatever, the respect, you're tapping hands, in jiu-jitsu you bow, to your opponent. The respect is built in there, and that kind of translates to your life. I know at times, if I'm tired, I have to get out of the martial arts mentality of, okay, I can't say us, or I can't bow because this isn't, I'm not on the mats right now. But you're absolutely right on with that.
Bob, you work out with the club, right?
It's a school. Yeah, we call it schools. Yeah. Five Dragons is independent. It used to be a member of North American Kyokushin, and then Kyokushin Kan. But we won't get into the politics of karate, as you're probably aware. It's absolutely riddled with bad politics. thankfully, Binder Jiu-Jitsu is a member of the Zenith Network, which is Professor Robert. I'm drawing a blank on his last name in Las Vegas. Sean, you might know who he is. He trains a lot of UFC guys. That's terrible. I'm forgetting. It's terrible. But anyway, but yeah, there's schools and they're affiliated schools.
And John, are you actively involved in a club or a school?
So I not at the moment. When I am active, I go to Pariah MMA. So that's here in Colorado Springs. They're one of the great schools here. And I wouldn't consider myself a regular. At the moment, I'm not participating at that school. But when I decide, there'll be times in the year where I get up and I say, man, I'm going to get motivated now. I'm going to start making a habit out of it. That's the school I go to. The coaching there is fantastic. It's best in class. And
the reason that I kind of mention that is because, John, you had mentioned a few minutes ago about, looking up and down the line and, understanding that there are people that are better and people that are not as well trained. And, the one thing that I always really was impressed with the club that I've participated in is the people that are there, the people that are participating, that are engaged in the sport. They all have something very similar about them all, and they're all the type of people that you want to be around, whether it's, working out in a karate club or out enjoying, some relaxation time with some friends or in a work environment. They're all people that, that you want to have around. I mean, I remember a saying, God determines who walks into your life. It's up to you to decide who walks away, who stays, and who you refuse to let go. And to me, all the people in the club are the ones that I just don't want to let go. They all have something about them. And I think that's common throughout all of the martial arts.
I would agree with that, Kevin. I think with the caveat being is you find a good school. I will say, in my experience, we were lucky to find Sensei Mark and his family, who have been excellent mentors. But with Binder, I did a lot of research because I knew after going through, karate, and I had an appetite to learn more. I wanted to make sure that I placed myself in a quality environment for jiu-jitsu because not all schools are created the same. Mm-hmm. And it's easy to go down. And I don't know if we're going to have time to get into it about McDojo type environments and everything, but a good school has all these benefits besides the martial arts, the lifestyle, and all of that. And I think that's what you're speaking of, this quality people that you train with who are respectful, a word that we used earlier.
Yeah, you become a community with them.
Yeah. Okay. Sean, we'll start with you on this one. What are your favorite parts of practicing martial arts? Is it sparring, or is it some other element?
I'm going to say it's an unpopular answer if you come from the school of wrestling, because many will not say this, but it's the drilling. But what they will agree with, and when I say drilling, it's just the repetition of going, practicing the moves. You all know what that is. But but what they would agree with is it's the curriculum, right? So it's the learning the technique, and getting better at the technical side of things. Because at the end of the day, I mean, you could be as talented as you can have all the natural gifts in the world, but if you step out there and that's all you have, and you're facing someone who is a clinician, they will make quick work of you. And so what it forces is a discipline to actually learn the curriculum of the sport, learn the technique, and dedicate yourself to that. And because that's what's going to separate you at the end of the day. If you have some natural talents, use them as best you can, but pay attention to the small details, learn the techniques, and then drill those techniques over and over and over. Because what happens at the end of the day you all know this very well, is that it's not 100 times. You're not drilling it 1,000 times. You're drilling it hundreds of thousands of times, so that at some point that just becomes a part of who you are. It becomes part of your neurological synapses. It becomes part of your muscle reflex. It's actually built in you. So when you feel something happening to you, or someone's moving to the left or the right, and you can instantly recognize what that is, your body just responds without the thought. It's less deliberate than it is reflexive. And it's because you've built that into your muscle memory, you've built that into your DNA, because you've done it so many times, hundreds of thousands of times. So that's what I really appreciate. And it's really just understanding, again, the technical side of things. And so that it's because once you've gotten that, it makes it so much easier. Once you've learned the sport, it makes it so much easier. It's less force. And I really enjoy that piece of it. And when you got it, and when you know it snaps, and you finally got it, there's such a reward there.
I agree with that completely. Having gone through the process to get my black belt in karate, there was a learning process the first few years, and I took a beating, you know. And but by time I got up to my brown belt level, things started to level off for me, and I could compete better, because I had a better understanding of the techniques and was more efficient using the techniques. And now I'm going through it all over again in jiu-jitsu, where I'm not efficient at all. I'm struggling to keep my head above water, but it's fun. It's a fun struggle. And that's the competitiveness of wanting to do well that I was talking about earlier. Yeah. Kevin, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, so our club, we focus on the karate technique, so doing the katas. We also do sparring, and we do traditional weapons, both techniques and practice with weapons. We've spent more time on kata than anything else, and again, I think that speaks to what John was saying, where you learn something so many times, hundreds of thousands of times. You practice the same technique that it just becomes inherent in who you are. And for me, I've enjoyed I've enjoyed the kata, learning the katas more than any of the other parts of it. The other parts are fun. The weapons are fun. The sparring is fun. But to me, the kata it's so much about perseverance and memory and focus. And I mean, you can't be thinking or doing anything else when you're trying to, perfect a kata. And that's really where the concentration and all of those things come into play. And for me, I like that part of it. I like the repetition. I like the, learning and going over. I mean, the first kata that we learned, and I'm still on my journey for greatness in karate, if you will. I'm a green belt, so I'm only a third Kaiyu, and I've got a long way to go. But it's doing these techniques over and over again, and learning them and focusing on them and trying to perfect them. And every time that you do a kata, you do it a little bit better than the time that you last did it, and you learn a little bit more, and you watch how other people are doing it, and you watch the areas where you're struggling and trying to, remember certain moves or certain sequences, and that's the part that I really like. I just like the being immersed and engaged in it at those times.
Excellent. Before I start with my next question, I'll say the head of Zenith is Robert Drysdale. So if anyone wants to look up Robert Drysdale, he's at the highest levels of that field. But Kevin, your response is a perfect segue into my next question. Now, we've spoken about this to a certain degree, but how much do you value the other sides of martial arts, the lifestyle elements, including diet, stretching, taking care of yourself mentally, and trying to be a better person, which I think is part of the Budo if you practice a traditional Japanese martial art or Chinese martial art?
Yeah, It's well, right now I'm kind of dealing with some of the after effects of COVID. So I don't know that the lifestyle has been, really working well for me in the last 6 months. But but once we get back to it, we've been away from the club for a little while because of the pandemic. But once we get back to it, I mean, the lifestyle parts of it are all they're really important. I've always been a believer in continual improvement. Personally, as part of my personal makeup, I've always approached things in my life from the point of view that whatever it is that I've done, I've always evaluated what I've done and how I've done it, and always with an eye towards how could I do that better the next time. And it doesn't matter what it is. I played a lot of sports when I was younger, and whether it was in sports, whether it's in the business world, whether it's just dealing with people one-on-one, I always tend to self-assess and try to improve. And, the martial arts has helped me focus and help me understand how to assess in a better way than what I was doing before. And the result for me, I think, has been learning to be more patient with people in situations, learning to be more understanding of people, and being able to put yourself in their shoes, in their position, to try to understand what you're doing and how that impacts them, rather than just wondering concentrating on what you're doing. So it's really elevating yourself as a person. And those are the things that, to me, are really important and big takeaways for me since I've been, practicing and being at this club.
Okay, and Sean, from your perspective, how much do you value these lifestyle elements?
They're invaluable. I mean, when you look at, if we posture the question, how does this contribute to your life outside of your career, right? And what value do you place on that? I mean, when you clock out of work every day and you look at, in fact, if you just look at the work week and you say, you have a finite amount of time in which to choose what you want to do with that time, right? And there's just a world of possibilities that are available to you, and to decide to do something that's healthy. There's all sorts of things that are just unhealthy you could distract yourself with, right? But decide to do something that's actually healthy for you, that's good for you, that allows you to decompress from the work week. Some weeks are harder than others. To get in there and exercise, get your heart rate up, start sweating, activate your lymphatic system, get those toxins out of your body, build up your immunities. You're doing something that's healthy for you at the end of the day, and that is good for you. It's good for the people around you. It's good for your family. It's good for your career. You step back into work the next week rejuvenated, and you learn a lot of the disciplines that are I would say, auxiliary to the art form itself, but that sets you up for success within that art form. But it's the stretching, it's the yoga, it's the good eating, it's making sure that you do take care of yourself, even if it's just going for a hike or going for a walk. That's going to keep you in good shape. You don't have to be an Olympian to participate and go in there and roll around and learn some technique. But you will find that just a moderate amount of exercise, walking or hiking or just some outdoor activity, it kind of keeps your body loose and limber enough, your knees and everything lubricated, and it allows you to go in there to actually benefit from those sessions. There's been times where I have not been taking care of myself, and I decide, you know what, I'm going to go and do some grappling or some jiu-jitsu or some wrestling, and my body's not ready for it, right? Because I haven't been taking care of myself. So it teaches you, even in the off times, to stay taking care of yourself, right? You have to do that as a lifestyle. And it doesn't mean, again, that you have to be a gladiator or an Olympian, but some basic things, just walking and getting out there, hiking and doing things. It is a lifestyle that's sort of auxiliary to what you're doing and what you appreciate and what you get out of the sport that kind of keeps you going. And so that's, I benefited tremendously from that. And age has a way of reminding you that you need to do that. it's been good.
Okay. This will kind of, we'll work towards wrapping things up here, but we've talked about the pandemic and how it's affecting everyone. So how is the pandemic affecting your training, and what would you say, this is a two-part question, and what would you say to anyone in the electronics industry who's considering maybe trying martial arts out for the benefits that we've talking about or spoken about, both mentally and physically? And Sean, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so right now, like I said, the school that I attend, Pariah MMA, so for the time being, I'm not participating, which means I don't know what others are doing now, but I can only imagine like a lot of the gyms, people are closing down, and maybe they're finding ways responsible ways to still get activity and learning in. But what I would say for people that are considering, if you're in this industry and you're considering getting involved in any of these disciplines, don't be intimidated. Anybody can do this, and anyone can benefit from this. You do not have to have lofty goals. You do not have to decide that you want to compete one day. There is so much to gain nonetheless, if you're willing to submit yourself to that. And then commit to the process, right? Decide what you want to get out of it at the end of the day. But there is a process nonetheless at the end of the day. And if you know that, sometimes my heart breaks a little bit when I see people deciding that there is a goal, there is an objective. They want to get healthier. They want to, whatever it is, they want to start jogging again. And you start, and no matter how hard you try, you've been doing it for a week, you've been doing it for a month, you've been doing it for a year, and it just doesn't seem to be, you don't seem to be making progress. And it's heartbreaking because, what I know is that there is another side to that. And I only have the benefit of knowing that because I've gone through the process. And it can take a long time. And, it's just, you don't give up. At the end of the day that there is a process. But also just have fun with it. If you don't want to compete, and if you don't want to be the world's best, there's more to gain, and just have fun and just enjoy it. And when you stop enjoying it, when you make it hard and you put too much on yourself, then that's when it becomes less fun. And go in there and have fun. Put your pride to the side. Be willing to get beat by someone. Be willing to be inspired by someone. Learn something from someone. And there's so much to gain there. And just have fun.
Okay, and you, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, John's covered a lot of it now. I would encourage anybody to look at this as something that you can do for a lifetime, regardless of your age, regardless of your starting point. I started only a few years ago, and so later in life, and to understand that traditional martial arts is just as much about the mind as it is about the physical part of it. So you're training physically, and you're exercising, but you're also training your mind, and it helps you to remain sharp and to to be aware. Our club is, I mentioned, it's a small club, but we're fortunate that it's been going for 40 years. And one of the real benefits of our club is there's more senseis or black belts in our club than there are students in the club. So we have the opportunity when we show up to have one-on-one training with a black belt, with a sensei, almost every time. And that's invaluable to have that level of guidance to learn when you're learning the martial arts is fantastic. We've struggled through the pandemic. The club has been closed for the most part since the pandemic started. We have been able to get together as a group outdoors, and we're waiting for our local health authorities to give us the go-ahead to be able to start doing indoor sports like karate. And I know we're close, but we're really close to being able to get back to it. And I can't wait to get back to it. We've tried to keep up some of it during the pandemic, my son and I, but we've let it slip. We haven't kept up like we should have. So we need the structure of being able to go to the club to be able to do this. And we can't wait. We can't wait to get back to the club and to get active again and start, conditioning and get back to learning and everything else. Bob, something that struck me, it's interesting, is our club is affiliated with the Botoku Kai International Association. And one of our lead instructors in North America is a Sensei Ricci, who's out of Boston. And he travels here usually 4 times a year to conduct seminars and extended classes. And we've missed that too, because Sensei Ricci hasn't been here. So, we just miss being with the people. We miss the training. We miss the time that we've been spending doing it. And we're really hopeful that we can get back to it quickly. But for anybody that's thinking about this, you can do this later in life. You can do it early in life. There's no drawback to getting engaged with martial arts. There's just no drawback at all.
I completely agree. I know in my case, Massachusetts was shut down from about March through June. And so I've been back on a limited basis, basically drilling in both styles. We can't spar, we can't roll. But my coach is Sensei Mark and Coach Julio make drilling fun, and they try to be creative to make it as engaging as possible, and that's been fun. And the benefit physically for me has been, whenever we go back to full classes, that my cardio ought to be okay. And so that's been motivating me to go every week. And so even in these pandemic times, these COVID times, the martial arts community is trying to make the most out of a bad situation, to say the least. But I would reiterate what both you guys said about anyone can benefit from doing this. And I'll say this, in my experience, I'm probably the oldest guy in both schools doing this stuff. And thankfully, Sensei Mark and Coach both, they don't treat me like a 25-year-old. They know physically I can't do some of the things that a young man can do, but they handle me appropriately, and I thank them for that. It's part of the journey that my experience is going to be different than a younger guy's, and it's part of what makes it fun that I can go out there and compete and get better both mentally and physically from doing this stuff, and yet do it on my own program, because there's no way I can do some things that a 25 or 30-year-old guy can do. So people have to realize that martial arts really is for everyone. It's from a kid all the way up to, you can be a senior citizen. And I've heard that Elio Gracie rolled right up until the end, and he was in his 90s when he passed away. So if a master like that can set that kind of example, we ought to be able to follow.
Yeah, you make a really good point too about not being able to maybe do the things that you could do when you was 25. So if any of you out there are thinking about stepping into this space, I would also encourage you to take your time. Be kind to yourself. Stretch. Right? Do a lot of stretching. You're going to need to do that before, stretch after, and protect yourself and take your time. Injuries sometimes can be a little sneaky, and you may not feel it in the moment, but you might wake up handicapped the next day. You're not careful and have some real injury. So when you're 18, you're a young whippersnapper. That stuff you can bounce back pretty quick. But if you're not careful with yourself, this age, take your time. Take your time. Be good to yourself. Stretch and get ready for that environment, and then take it easy. Don't go. You may not need to go 100%. Just 5%, 10% might be okay. Learn and set yourself up for success.
I completely agree. And one other thing I would add too is don't, if you're in a belt ranking kind of style, don't worry about belts and stripes and stuff. They'll come if you put the work in and show up every day.
That's right.
The belts and the ranks will come. I never think about that stuff. And a point that you made earlier about winning and losing, I never worry about winning or losing either. Um, Sensei sons, I know, take it easy on me because they're respectful. And the same thing when rolling. When we were rolling, I can't tell. I've lost count of how many times I got submitted, but it's fun, even though I lost. And but it's fun. It's part of the process, and you can't let that stuff deter you from experiencing the journey of learning and making yourself better.
It's funny, Bob, you mentioned the belt. If you're in, one of the organizations that uses the belts, our organization, it might be the same for many other organizations. You start at a white belt and, you become a sensei when you achieve black belt. But after you continue as a black belt and you earn the different degrees of black belt, the final belt is a white belt again. So the master belt in our practicing in the Syringido is a white belt when you've achieved everything you can achieve in the martial art. So that's always something I've found interesting, that it comes around full circle.
Yeah, Sensei Mark has a saying that where he says, "Oh, black belt is a white belt that never quit."
Yeah.
And when you boil it down, it really is. Most people quit before they get to that level, but all it means is that you persevered through. A word that I think both of you guys used in this little discussion was perseverance. You persevered through. Yes, it can be difficult physically and mentally at times to move up the ranks, but that black belt, all it means is that you persevered through the process.
Yeah.
There's a process at the end of the day, and that's the journey, right? I think, Kevin, you used the term journey too, and that's the perseverance. And there is I love the process, and like you said, just if you're rolling around and you're getting submitted 10, 20 times, like that's just what it is today, and but you're learning from that at the end of the day. And if you've never been on the receiving end of that, man, it's an experience and it's a journey, and you're learning so much from that experience. You're learning so much from realizing your own deficiencies. And that's the process. That is the journey. And you persevere through that.
And at the end of the day, I mean, isn't it all about the journey? It's not about the destination. It's always about the journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before I let you go, guys, Sensei Mark had to delay. My family also participates. And my wife and daughter, they were supposed to test in October, for the October 2020 for their black belt. Because of the pandemic stuff, he delayed it to 2021 because they wouldn't be able to spar. They couldn't even really run because you have to have a mask. So to ask someone, our Kyokushin black belt test is about a 3-hour test. It's running, it's all kinds of cardio stuff, it's sparring, it's kata. And the idea, it's supposed to fatigue you, and you're supposed to persevere through the test. And it's kind of like the crowning moment of your journey. And Sensei Mark delayed it for my wife and daughter for next year. But the takeaway that for my experience isn't necessarily the black belt. It was that day testing, of doing the running. We had roughly a 3-mile run. In between it, we had to do hill runs, hill sprints and stuff. And I wasn't expecting the hill sprints. My legs were dog tired. We get back, I'm doing cardio, and then I had to spar, and I took some shots. I was so sore the next day. I could barely move. But it's the black belt test that I remember more than the black belt. I wouldn't say doesn't mean nothing to me, but it's the test and going through that test with my classmates, one of them being Sensei Mark's son, who I look to. He inspired me. He's a very impressive young man, and he helped me get through that test. And that's what I take away from all of that.
Yeah. some truth to that.
I want to thank you guys for taking time out of your day to talk about martial arts. I had a lot of fun talking about this. And before I let you guys go, could you state where people can find you, your companies on the internet? Kevin?
Sure, I'm at Torus Power, so TORUS power.com. And anybody can get in touch with me through the website.
Okay, and Sean, One Firefly.
Yeah, One Firefly. You can find us online at One Firefly. You want to spell out one, O-N-E, and firefly.com. And you can learn all about what we do and our history with this industry and serving CI professionals for over a decade now. Yeah, online.
Thank you, guys. And I will give you a big us. And have a great day. Have a nice weekend. Thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with me today.
Thank you,
Great.
Sensei.
Had a really good time. Awesome.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Bob Ansher. And now that we've gone through the martial arts podcast panel discussion, I wanted to take a few minutes to talk with a couple of experts on the topic of martial arts, the benefits of practicing martial arts from both a mental and physical perspective. And I also wanted to take a closer look at a couple of popular martial arts, jiu-jitsu and karate. To do so, I asked a couple of questions to Sensei Mark and Coach Julio. So you're going to hear from my coaches discussing karate and jiu-jitsu and the benefits they provide as a martial art and both the physical and mental aspects to help someone's daily activities and overall quality of life.
Okay, well, one of the things is when you think like a gym or stuff like that, you think these guys are lifting a lot of heavy weights. You're also, it depends on what you want in your build. With a lot of heavy weights, you do rip muscles and they have to reform. So there can be a certain amount of strain. When it comes to martial arts training, you're working your flexibility, you're working your cardio, you're working balance, and you're developing strength. So a lot of times you don't need that extra weight to get stronger. Good bag work really helps you out. Actually, one of the martial artists that I am a big fan of, Michael Jai White, he plays Spawn. You've seen him in movies. He even admits most of his workout is from bag work and training, very little weight. But like I said, with martial arts training, you're getting a whole body experience. And also too, you're developing internally, you're developing your mind, your body, your spirit. So I think in general, for most people, martial arts training is better than heavyweight training, especially for your average person. I mean, your average housewife is not going to go out there and start deadlifting 300 pounds, but your average housewife could throw a strong side kick.
Thank you, Sensei.
You're welcome. That's all right. Later. All right. So one of the things you look for when choosing a martial arts school is, number one, if you can find the history of the instructor. Myself, I'm originally from Gary, Indiana. I trained under Senseis John Jackson, Sensei George Samisa, who trained directly under Master Tadashi Yamashita. Most people know him from movies, different things like that. But also, too, you want to go to a school where the instructors, they don't give you this ego where it's like, okay, no other style is better than ours. Nobody else is as good as us. If they talk about how great they are all the time, you should probably have a second thought about them. Also, too, if they can't tell you, okay, well, we're going to put you in this program, but they can't really tell you how much is it going to cost, or there's always surprises, have a second thought. And also, too, one of the biggest things, if they go, oh, in 2 years, you're going to have a black belt, you should not go under the idea that you're going to get a black belt in a certain amount of time. It really depends on you as an individual and your instructor's curriculum. Okay, nobody should be able to guarantee when you're going to be a black belt.
Okay, thank you, Sensei.
You're welcome.
Okay, Okay, Sensei. Can people practice martial arts styles such as karate or jiu-jitsu and meet their physical fitness goals?
Definitely. I myself, my first karate class was in 1974. I was 7 years old. I've been doing martial arts pretty much all my life. I'm 53 years old now. So, like I said, once again, depending on the person, what their physical goal is, the harder you train, of course, the more you're going to get out of it. But also, too, as you get older, martial arts training, your body actually develops muscle memory. So you may not be as fast as you were when you were 20, but you will also realize that what took me maybe 3 steps to do when I was 20, I can do in 1 step now in my older years. And it's well documented. People in Okinawa, for instance, are some of the longest living people on the planet. Their diet is a big thing. And a lot of them, they take martial arts not so much for life or death, or self-defense, but for exercise. So you're constantly moving, you're constantly keeping your body going, and it's very beneficial, like I said, for your mind and your body.
Thank you, Sensei. Hi, Coach. My first question for you is, jiu-jitsu is known as a gentle art form, but yet it's highly effective. How can it be known as a gentle art form, but yet be so effective?
Well, technically about be so effective because um, you use the opponent's strength and endurance and weight against him as about leverage. So the whole point is on jiu-jitsu, it's learn how to be comfortable when it's uncomfortable and don't have no fear about how long the fight's gonna last. So with jiu-jitsu, you build this kind of confidence where there's no time limit, and you focus on survive, manage your cardio, manage the knowledge so you can control your opponent. And by doing this, we have so many options of reverse the positions, use like leverage, angles, so we don't have to really rely on any strength and size. So it doesn't matter how big you are, how strong you are. If you face someone has a ground experience like jiu-jitsu does, for sure, that's a big advantage. And that's how I believe they call gentle art, because you're not that aggressive. I mean, aggressive in the point where when you become a fight or martial arts, everyone looking forward to pump, punch, and kicks. And jiu-jitsu, we do learn those, but we learn how to manage distance, and we can kind of avoid those kind of strikes and kicks, and then we can get a control with the opponent by be close to the person, because the gentle, it's mean, on my understanding, you don't show aggressivity to finish or control your opponent. That's my point of view about why jiu-jitsu called gentle art.
Okay, why? Is there something about jiu-jitsu that maybe people might assume but don't necessarily know?
And which point?
Like the lifestyle of practitioners.
Yes. People don't understand much about when they heard about jiu-jitsu. I think the first thing come in mind, it's UFC. It's pound to pound strike and punches and kicks, a lot of blood involved. And on a gentle art, on a jiu-jitsu lifestyle, it's not about that. It's about mindset. It's about mindset. How can you be so kind and care about others on the mat and take with you outside the mats? So the good thing about jiu-jitsu and in what we do, we respect each other a lot, and it's a game of trust. What do you mean trust? So when you are training with your opponent in jiu-jitsu, okay, I need to trust my opponent. They will let go when I give up. When we give up, when we tap. So the big trust right there, where if he needs to trust me when I catch him in a submission or any kind of choke hold or any other aspect of breaking someone's arm, shoulders, I will let go when he give up. And we cannot manage that on a street fight. You cannot manage that on a strike, on other martial arts, because when the person land a punch or kick, it can go very hard, can go very fast, so you cannot manage that well as you can manage to control your opponent related submission.
Okay, Coach. My final question. Can people who practice jiu-jitsu get the same benefits as they would going to a physical fitness center or something equivalent?
Well, it's a good question because I have my strong beliefs about it's totally different. And why you say that? Because I have here so many people come to try a class, and they are talking about someone like when they walk in the first time, I'm fit. I run 20 miles. I power lift, 600 pounds in squat. I do CrossFit. I swim a lot. I do 100 miles of biking. The moment they go 3 minutes under pressure, under someone, they panic. And they can't control that. So the difference is, be fit helps, for sure. But be with someone on the top of you, try choke you, smash you. It's a whole different story. And that's what people get so involved, in love with jiu-jitsu, because how it's possible, I think I'm in fit, I'm in a good shape, I can even survive 2 minutes of light training someone maybe 50 pounds lighter than me. How he can be so heavy? How can I not? How he's so calm and I'm panicking? I'm in a better shape than the person. So what I see is like, that's a huge difference, because you can like not, you can push yourself if you want to run a marathon. You can push yourself if you want to put more weight, lifting weight. Yes, for sure. But when you have someone on top of you try to choke you, it's different. And that's what the jiu-jitsu is all about. It's not choking each other, but learn how to be comfortable as uncomfortable, and learn how to deal with this kind of stamina, you know, on a fight where you don't know how long it's gonna last. So the big difference, I think, is that, and learn how to manage your cardio and under pressure, and it's a whole different story.
Thank you, Coach.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.